You are on Tips and Streams with your host, Coca.
What's good, folks? Koken here, locked in and geared up to break down 4 NBA showdowns that are about to crank up the temperature. Strap in, because we're rolling straight into the action. The first prediction for today's NBA games is for the game between the Golden State Warriors and Cleveland Cavaliers. When I look at this matchup, I see a game that sits right on the edge of chaos. The Warriors walk into Cleveland with a roster that's hanging together by tape, adrenaline, and whatever pride is left in that locker room. And honestly, I respect the way they've been scrapping. That last outing in Philadelphia told me more about their mentality than any win would've. Down 20 plus early, no Steph, no Jimmy Butler, no rhythm, and still they clawed all the way back and had the game in their hands until the final second. When a team down that many bodies still digs in defensively and forces a high-powered offense to sweat for every bucket, I take notice. And that's exactly why I'm not writing off Golden State tonight, even with the entire world throwing them into the blender. Yes, they're shorthanded. Yes, the scoring drops without Steph. Yes, the offense gets stuck in the mud and the turnover bug bites harder. But the identity they showed in that Sixers game, tough, gritty, willing to fight through a 24-point hole. That's the stuff that keeps spreads alive on the road. Now, Cleveland is coming in with their own storyline. They finally got a bit of breathing room with that win over San Antonio, snapping out of a rut where they dropped 4 of 6. Donovan Mitchell is cooking at an elite level. When he gets downhill or starts pulling up with that rhythm jumper, there aren't many guards in the league who can slow him down. And the third quarter explosion against the Spurs, 44-19, showed me they can turn the faucet on and drown teams when the pieces align. Jalen Tyson's emergence, Evan Mobley's steady interior work, and their wave of role guys who fire threes without hesitation all make Cleveland a dangerous team when they're healthy. The problem? They are not healthy. They haven't been for weeks. Garland is in and out. Struss, Merrill, Allen, Nance, all out. And even when they play well, they stumble when the market expects them to dominate. For weeks, they've been sinking bettors with big spreads, especially at home. They're good enough to win games, but not consistent enough to create separation. And that's where this matchup gets interesting for me. When I watch the Cavs, I see a team with high-level talent, but shaky availability and streaky output. When I watch the Warriors, I see a team without its superstars, but with a bunch of hungry guys who defend their tails off when pushed into the spotlight. The Warriors don't have the same firepower without Steph, but they've shown that they can slow games down, scrap for stops, and make opponents uncomfortable. Their bench guys, Spencer, Moody, Hield, Melton, are playing like men who know every minute is an audition. That matters in a spot like this. Cleveland has the offensive ceiling, no doubt. They can get hot from deep, they can build momentum inside, and Mitchell can single-handedly tilt the floor. But they also give you long stretches of slip page, especially when they face a defense that's willing to pressure ball handlers and grind possessions into late clock decisions. With a 9-point spread on the table, that volatility becomes a huge part of my read. And look, I know the numbers say Cleveland should take this. I know Golden State is banged up and thin, but 9 points is a mountain in this league, especially against a Cavs team that keeps failing to cover at home. When a team struggles to create separation, I don't trust them to put another team away comfortably, even if they win. So here's where I land. I'm siding with competitiveness. I'm siding with grit. I'm siding with that Warriors fight I saw in Philadelphia. I believe Cleveland can absolutely win this game. They have more stability at the top, and Mitchell is playing out of his mind, but that spread feels inflated. It feels like the market is punishing Golden State for injuries without respecting the way they've responded. My prediction, I'm riding with the Warriors to cover the 9-point spread. I think Cleveland can take the win, but Golden State keeps this thing close enough to cash. Today's second prediction is for the game between the Milwaukee Bucks and Detroit Pistons. When I look at this matchup, I see two teams moving in opposite lanes. Detroit is rolling into this one with swagger, momentum, and a level of consistency that tells me they're not just a feel-good story anymore. They've built an identity. They defend, they rebound, they run their sets with purpose, and they close games like a team that knows exactly who they are. And for me, that matters more than any single stat on the page. Cade Cunningham and Jalen Duren continue to set the tone, and lately they've been playing like guys who understand the assignment every single night. Cade has tightened up his decision-making. He's getting downhill, and he's letting the game come to him. Duran anchors the paint with the confidence of a young veteran, cleaning the glass, finishing everything around the rim, and giving Detroit that interior presence that the Bucks just don't have right now. Ronald Holland giving them solid production off the bench only strengthens the impression that this roster has multiple gears. And what really jumps out to me is how good Detroit has been at home. They protect their floor. They feed off the game's pace. They respond to tough stretches. Even when things get shaky, they find their balance and keep punching. That's a trait of a serious team. Milwaukee, on the other hand, feels like a group still searching for the floor under their own feet. Without Giannis on the court, the Bucks look like they're constantly trying to figure out who takes the big shots, who steadies the game when it starts slipping, and who brings them that emotional push in key moments. Kevin Porter Jr. can fill it up, sure, and Bobby Portis always gives energy, but the overall rhythm is missing. Their defensive lapses are glaring, their rebounding is inconsistent, and their long droughts on offense are showing up way too often. And the scheduling spot? Rough. They're walking into Detroit on tired legs, coming off a tough outing, and they're stepping into a building where the Pistons have been one of the toughest home teams in the East. Add the revenge factor, because Detroit still remembers how the Bucks stole that last meeting, and now we're talking about a team with motivation on top of momentum. When I put all these pieces together, Detroit's depth, their two-way discipline, Milwaukee's internal chaos, and the back-to-back disadvantage, the picture becomes clear to me. I expect Detroit to take control early with pace, keep the defensive screws tight, and lean on the Cade-Duran combination to break Milwaukee's structure over 4 quarters. My prediction: I'm riding with the Pistons tonight. My money is on Detroit to win this game and cover the 11-point spread. I trust their momentum, I trust their home floor, and I trust the way they've been closing games. I'm taking Detroit to get it done. The third prediction for today is for the game between the Los Angeles Clippers and the Minnesota Timberwolves. When I look at this matchup, I see one of those nights where the narratives are louder than the standings. Minnesota is coming in rested, confident, and rolling with a 4-game winning streak. I've watched this group long enough to know that when they get into a rhythm, they can bully teams with their length, their switching, and their ability to turn defensive stops into downhill momentum. Anthony Edwards keeps leveling up. Julius Randle is playing like a guy who finally found his fit, and their supporting cast has quietly become one of the more reliable groups in the West. On paper, they check every box you want from a home favorite, but the game isn't played on paper, and this season, I've seen a different side of the Clippers, for better and for worse. They've been one of the most unpredictable teams in the league, and not in a fun way. A team with stars shouldn't be sitting this far down the Western standings, and yet here they are, trying to climb out of a hole with uneven chemistry, a short rotation, and a long list of headaches. Still, I've been around this league too long not to recognize a couple of important details. Wounded teams can cover big numbers, and the Clippers have been hanging around more often than people realize. I watched their loss in Memphis, and even though the fourth quarter was ugly, the effort wasn't as bad as the box score makes it look. James Harden still has nights where he can carry them for stretches. Kawhi Leonard, if he actually plays tonight, gives them a stabilizing presence, and Ivica Zubac has been one of the most consistent big men nobody talks about. Even with all their flaws, this group doesn't always fold, and I've seen them drag games into dogfights simply by slowing the pace and forcing teams to grind out possessions. Minnesota, on the other hand, has this strange habit of drifting through games when the opponent isn't a marquee name. I've seen them play down to weaker teams more than once this season. They eventually get the job done, but they don't always bury teams when they should. That's important when you're staring at a double-digit spread in a league where scoring droughts can flip momentum in 30 seconds. Both defenses can tighten up. Both teams can hit those stretches where every possession feels like a tug-of-war. And I can already see Minnesota having one of those stretches where they lose rhythm for 5 or 6 minutes. I also can't ignore the fact that the Clippers have covered several recent games by simply staying physical, slowing the tempo, and forcing opponents into half-court sets. I don't need the Clippers to be spectacular. I just need them to hang around. And for the way this game sets up, I believe they can. I've been doing this long enough to know when a spread is inflated because of recent recency bias, and Minnesota's winning streak definitely pushed this line higher than it should be. My prediction, I'm riding with the Clippers to cover the 11.5-point spread. Today's last prediction is for the game between the Houston Rockets and Dallas Mavericks. When I look at this matchup between Dallas and Houston, the first thing that hits me is how different these two team seasons feel. Houston comes in rolling, stacking wins with that two-way punch that has turned them into one of the toughest outs in the league. They defend with attitude, they score in waves, and they crash the glass like their lives depend on it. From Durant's shot-making to Sengun's interior playmaking to Amen Thompson suddenly looking like he's been in this league for a decade, the Rockets have a rhythm that jumps off the screen. Dallas, meanwhile, has lived on a roller coaster. But what catches my eye, and what keeps me from writing them off, is how much fight this group still shows. Even with injuries piling up, even with Anthony Davis missing stretches and returning in pieces, even with Lively and Irving unavailable and Gafford and PJ Washington taped together, the Mavericks have kept showing flashes. I've watched them push the tempo smarter, move the ball quicker, and get production from guys who were barely in the script earlier this year. Dallas can still guard when they lock in, and their defensive backbone has been one of the few constants in an otherwise turbulent season. And this is where things get interesting for me personally. Dallas is coming off a rough outing against Oklahoma City, but even in that game, I spotted moments where their offense looked cleaner than it did in November. Cooper Flagg is still figuring things out from three, but he competes on every possession. Jaden Hardy is shooting with confidence again. And now and then, Dallas puts together stretches where you see a team that could be a postseason problem if they ever get healthy. Houston has the stronger numbers, no debate there. Their scoring efficiency, their rebounding edge, their pressure defense, all elite. They've been the better team night to night, and I respect what they're doing. But this league has a funny way of flipping logic upside down, especially when everyone expects one team to dominate. I've been watching this sport for more than 3 decades, and every season, there's always a night where the beaten-down team suddenly swings back with a punch nobody saw coming. And this spot, for me, feels like it has one of those angles. Dallas is at home. They've shown signs of life. Their defensive structure still holds. And even though the Rockets have been a machine lately, they're walking into a matchup where Dallas has nothing to lose and everything to prove. Sometimes that mindset alone is enough to tilt a spread. So here's where I land. My prediction, I'm taking the Mavericks to cover the 9.5 points. I know most people will ride with Houston, and I completely understand why. They've been the better team, the healthier team, the more consistent team. But I've watched enough basketball to trust those strange moments when a struggling team finds one spark and flips a game. I'm not calling for a straight-up upset, though I wouldn't be shocked if it gets interesting late. But for me, the value sits on the Dallas side, at home, with a number this big. I'm rolling with the Mavericks and the points to cover.